Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. India and the US have once again underscored their commitment to ensure that both countries stay at the leading edge of innovation and to enhance coordination with like-minded nations to deliver secure, reliable and cost-competitive technology solutions for the Indian and American people and also their partners around the world. That's the key takeaway from the joint fact sheet issued after the meeting of National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his American counterpart Jake Sullivan in New Delhi. On a two-day visit to India, Sullivan co-chaired the second meeting of the India-U.S. initiative on critical and emerging technology in New Delhi. In the meeting, both the NSAs set the vision for the next chapter of our strategic technology partnership. Jake Sullivan also called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, and they discussed various areas of bilateral cooperation. Prime Minister Modi, who happened to meet the US President just days before, expressed satisfaction at the speed and scale of the growing bilateral partnership in all areas and also convergence of views on regional and global issues of mutual interest. So on the show today, we talk about the multifaceted strategic partnership between India and the US and the strength that the iCET initiative provides to the relationship. Joining me are two distinguished panelists. So let me begin the program by introducing them to you. Delighted to have with us on the program Dr. Arvind Gupta, Director, Vivekanand Foundation. He is also the former Deputy NSA. Glad to have you with us on the show, Ambassador. And also pleased to welcome former Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Thank you, sir, for your time as well. Ambassador Gupta, the first question to you on the significance of this visit, particularly because the visit of the NSA of the United States happens to be the first high-profile one from the country to India after Prime Minister Modi has taken over for a third consecutive term. And the focus clearly remains on how to enhance, how to deepen the iCET initiative, which was launched about 1.5 years ago.
Yes, indeed. iCET initiative is the centerpiece of India-U.S. technology defense industry cooperation today. As you know, many years ago, there was Indo-U.S. nuclear deal, and that opened up the opportunities for a deeper technology cooperation. Right. But it has been moving with fits and starts. But last year, with the National Security Advisors launching this initiative for critical and emerging technologies, which is now called iCET, the pace of cooperation has now accelerated. And this second meeting, which happened just after the Modi government was sworn in, indicates that the two sides are very serious about it. They had the chance of taking a review of or reviewing the partnership that has been going on for the last 1.5 years. And I think it's a very good augury. As you said, it's a new vision. And in this fact sheet, several new areas have been added, like the bio, for instance, biopharma, etc. And there is also now several new funds have been set up. Some money has also been released. And there is a greater focus in terms of identifying the technologies, high-tech technologies in which the two sides are cooperating. And it is also heartening to note that there has been progress in terms of specific joint ventures and collaborations that have taken place.
Sure. So how are we going to bring different stakeholders on board? How are we ensuring their active participation to ensure that this initiative is implemented efficiently? We'll get back to that in just a bit. But Ambassador Dayal, your thoughts, sir, on how you see the iCET initiative having elevated the already deepened and strategic partnership that both countries, India and the United States, enjoyed, particularly even before the initiative. But post the iCET launch, and this was the second meeting at the NSA level, how do you see the relationship having expanded to newer areas?
Well, Tina, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. You know, the core of the iCET is the idea of India and the United States supporting each other and encouraging greater collaboration in the technology ecosystem. They have taken decisions to jointly innovate and find solutions to challenges in these areas. And the visit by Mr. Jake Sullivan gave the two NSAs an opportunity to review the progress and set new priorities and deliverables. Now, the iCET is a highly important collaborative framework for enhancing cooperation in diverse domains of new and emerging technology, such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, defense, semiconductors, and wireless telecommunication. Now, later on, the two sides have included other new areas within the iCET framework, including biotechnology, critical minerals, and rare earth processing technologies, as also digital connectivity and digital public infrastructure and advanced materials. So, the ongoing visit by Jake Sullivan underlined the fact, as Mr. Doval put it, that the US and India have got to remain at the forefront of technology in case we need to protect and defend our value systems. Now, I think that the iCET will remain a highly important collaborative framework for both India and the United States. And we will be emphasizing whatever we can do to promote cooperation in the context of this very important undertaking, iCET.
The key to any initiative lies in the implementation. So while at the diplomatic level, we see multiple efforts, meetings taking place in both countries to ensure that this initiative, achieves the progress since its launch. But how do we ensure at the same time that we get the required investment?
Well, Tina, it's very important to involve various sectors of each country in order to be able to achieve the desired results. Now, in this area, it is very significant that yesterday a round table conference was organized under the auspices of the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, and a number of leading industrialists and thinkers took part in this round table. So I think there is a broad understanding that there has to be the involvement of all possible players and contributors towards making the iCET partnership as productive as possible. And I think that both sides, India and United States, can claim that the roundtable drew very strong participation from both sides. And this is particularly so as there is deep interest in widening the ambit of the dialogue and promoting the cooperation in this area. And the CII representatives indicated that they would send a series of industrial delegations to the United States, starting from this month itself, and would be requesting reciprocal visits by US delegation. So this is a very clear sign that it is not just a government initiative, but that participation from wider sections of society, especially industry, is also going to be forthcoming.
Dr. Gupta, we're talking about how it's important that the role of industry is clearly defined, and the fact that the kind of hurdles that they may face towards making iCET initiative a success is important. And considering that there was a roundtable conference that both the NSAs undertook with leaders of the industry, what are some of the problems, the experiences that the industry leaders put forth, and the kind of assurances that came in from the visiting NSA?
Well, technology cooperation amongst industry is not an easy thing. We have seen from our experience of dealing with the United States and with several other countries that this is a very highly complex process, and particularly in the case of the United States, it's a very complex process. One is that there are export restrictions from export controls, as they call them, and these are of course coming down. And there is this mechanism of strategic trade and strategic items, which has been going on. And I think the commerce secretaries on both sides are, commerce ministers on both sides are handling this. There is this very big issue of intellectual property rights. Now, it is okay to say that the two sides are collaborating and cooperating, but on what terms? Once you are going in highly sensitive areas and there is the question of intellectual property rights involved, which in turn is connected with the commercial considerations, so there has to be a very good understanding of between the two sides of intellectual property. For instance, if there is a joint funding of a project, then in what ratio do they share intellectual property rights? Many times it happens that there is a lot of funding, let's say from the United States into an Indian startup, but Indian startup is not able to negotiate the intellectual property rights, and as a result, all the joint intellectual property right which has been established or created, that goes to one side. So I think on our side, our industry also has to be very clear as to what they want, and they must safeguard their intellectual. True of our IITs and other universities who are now getting into the ambit of collaboration, because I find that many of them have very little knowledge about intellectual property rights. They are ready to work for it, but without really understanding what the intellectual property rights are involved. I think there is a need on our side also to become more aware, and we should be able to issues and raise awareness and educate our own people proper negotiations. And the third issue is, this is of the supply chains. Sometimes industrial collaborations happen, joint ventures happen, they progress for a few years, and then suddenly we find these supply chains begin to either break down or they simply disappear.
Right.
So here again, when we are negotiating, the supply chain reliability that needs to be established. So these are some of the few issues, but there are many others like that.
Okay, Ambassador Dayal, the fact that we've seen the assurance coming in from multiple leaders in the past, and also from the visiting NSA, Mr. Jake Sullivan, this time around as well, to the Indian industry, that back in the United States, there is bipartisan support to the Indian industry. So all of these impediments would be taken care of. But the fact is that there are long pending barriers to strategic trade. And if we talk about making initiatives like the iCET a success, it's just at the nascent stage. It has to advance further in the years to come, and to ensure that the procedure is seamless, all these impediments will have to go for the relationship to have a qualitative shift. How do we ensure that? How are we working towards that at the diplomatic level?
Well, both countries have a stake in deepening the relationship and removing whatever barriers there may be towards closer cooperation. Now, let me mention that something very significant in this regard was said by John Kirby, who's the White House National Security Communications Advisor. And he told his daily news conference attendees that Mr. Sullivan's trip would further deepen the already strong US-India partnership to create a safer and more prosperous Indo-Pacific. This, the visit of Jake Sullivan is part of what the US sees as its larger strategic interests. Engaging with India is imperative for the US because, the global geopolitical and economic epicenter has shifted to the Indo-Pacific, and the US is conscious that there is a belligerent China expanding its strategic and economic footprint. Therefore, for the United States, India has emerged as a major strategic partner to contain China, particularly in the Indian Ocean component of the Indo-Pacific region. So for this reason, I think that on its part, the US would try to remove obstacles if there are any, and we are also committed to doing the same. And the annual review meeting, for instance, of the iCET, which is envisaged, would be very useful in the direction of locating such obstacles or hurdles and deciding what measures the two sides need to take for removing them.
Okay, Ambassador Gupta, the fact that India has grown much closer to the USA when it comes to attracting investment and trade, but even today the bulk of the investment, the bulk of the trade goes to China. Can India expect, and with the kind of relationship that we have with the United States now, can India expect to be the bigger partner than China as far as the US is concerned?
Yes, I think iCET has opened the possibilities of a much deeper interaction between the US and India in industry, in academia, and of course within the governments. So that is the aim. If we don't do that, then I think iCET has not achieved its purposes. But as I said, that a lot of work needs to be done. It's not enough. I think diplomacy has done its job. Diplomacy has brought the people together. The roundtables have happened. The academic institutions are meeting, and so many things are happening. But in order to move forward, we have to be very clear about our own national interests. What are national interests here? I give you the one example. For instance, we have a number of startups, very bright, brilliant startups, but these are still very small in terms of their scale. And they are also starved of adequate funding.
Yes.
Now, once the commercial negotiations begin, it is quite possible that these startups who are looking for funding, they are funded by non-Indian sources. And if that happens, then the entire commercial transactions which take place in terms of technology transfer, etc., the whole scenario changes. So I think since we are today in Atmanirbharta mode and we want to develop many of our own technologies, we must also be very sure that what we create as intellectual property rights, which should remain with us, and or if we are sharing with others, we should be properly compensated for it. Otherwise, you see what happened many years ago when we had the DTTI, the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative, which remained more trade than technology. So technology part was forgotten. But now that we are going into co-production and co-production of big systems like the GE, which involves hundreds and hundreds of patents, royalties and so on. So the negotiations are going to be very complex, and our own capacity to absorb those technologies, have the right infrastructure, that also needs to be built up. So I think we are on the path towards becoming a major partner of the US, and not only US. As you can see from the fact sheet, there's also a mention of Republic of Korea, there's also mention of Quad and Japan and Australia, etc. So some of these initiatives can be expanded to include other countries, and they should be, because critical minerals, etc. We can enlarge these areas. But we must be very careful as to what we are negotiating and how we are negotiating and on what terms.
Right. Ambassador Doval, the fact that, and what Dr. Gupta suggests was mentioned in the fact sheet as well. So both sides laid importance on adapting to each other's technology protection toolkits. At the same time, they resolved to prevent the leakage of sensitive and dual use technologies to the countries of concern. Now, this is very important because in the times to come, technology is a double-edged sword, and this challenge will remain before both countries, particularly for India. How do we ensure that this is something that we take care of in collaboration with the United States?
Well, I'm sure that the high-level dialogue which takes place between India and the United States is able to come out with mechanisms which will attest to the determination of the two sides to remain on course and to overcome challenges like the ones you have mentioned. And this is very clear from the fact sheet which was issued after the meeting of Jake Sullivan and Mr. Ajit Doval following the critical and emerging technology talks, that the two sides have things under control and are able to identify any possible problems that exist and are determined to overcome them. And that is why, for instance, in very critical areas, such as the MQ-9B Sky Guardian drones, we find some substantial progress being made. This was a high-tech item, but India is getting them from the United States, and I think there is a broad agreement that we will be able to fulfill our objective of Make in India in this context also. So I think the high-level dialogue is making headway as much as possible in the direction of cooperating while overcoming obstacles that may keep arising.
Okay, I'll take the last comments from both of you. Ambassador Gupta, we happened to speak just a few days after Prime Minister Modi assumed office for a third straight term. So, although there's been no change at the top level and the foreign policy is expected to see continuity as the other departments, but do you expect some kind of calibration, some kind of resetting of the agenda, particularly for specific regions as far as the Modi 3.0 is concerned?
Yes, I think there will be a further intensification of the engagement with all the regions that we have started. If you look at the last 5 or 10 years, we have opened up to almost the entire globe. But there is still a need to step up and intensify and deepen our engagement, say, with Africa, for instance. We haven't had an India-Africa Forum meeting for several years. It should have happened much earlier. We have had some possibilities, some changes or rather intensification of relationship with Central Asia, but I think that's another area where we can certainly look up. But I would see that today we are also, since we are living in a multi-polar world, and we are seeing a lot of regional groups which have come up, like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and we are seeing a very big change which is coming up in BRICS. So we will have to be paying a lot of attention to these areas, these regions, and since new people are coming, new countries are coming, they will come up with their own agendas, and since we are projecting ourselves as the voice of Global South, so that opens up many opportunities. The Africa in G20, I think we need to give that a push. So there are many areas like that we will need to look at. And I also want to identify one specific thematic area, which is that of climate change and energy transition. And there's a brief mention of it, clean energy technologies in this fact sheet also. I think energy transition is going to be a very complex, a very arduous process. Decarbonization of energy system is not going to be easy. I think we need to pay a lot of attention to that area as well.
Okay, Ambassador Doval, your thoughts on the fact that India's growing influence globally was something that we've seen over the last couple of years. But as we rise as a power, there are also growing responsibilities. There will be challenges. What are some of the key priorities and challenges that you see for the Modi 3.0 government?
Well, the challenges will keep coming. At the moment, for instance, the entire world is facing the challenge which is posed not only by the Russia-Ukraine war, but also by the Israel-Hamas conflict. And India is considered a key global player and is therefore being approached from all sides to try and lend its heft to bringing about solutions to the problems. Now, let me mention one reason why India really counts in the global system is because India's economy now is the 5th largest in the world. You referred to Prime Minister Modi's recent meeting with the President Biden at the G7 summit. Let me mention that this is the 5th time that Prime Minister Modi had attended the G7 summit. Yes. In a consecutive fashion, 5 consecutive G7 meetings. Why? Because India counts even to the G7. And in fact, the Indian economy is bigger than the economies of the 4 of the G7 members, UK, France, Italy, and Canada. So, because of the fact that India counts, other countries are keen to widen and deepen their relationships with us. And of course, we will have to see how things suit us, what we should do, and I'm sure that we will be able to fashion out our foreign policy accordingly.
So the roadmap is already there. We know how the Modi government functions. The roadmap for the first 100 days was already prepared days in advance. But the fact is now on how it's implemented and the kind of progress that we see in the days to come. That having been said, we'll have to wind up the program. Thank you once again to both our guests for joining us on the program today, sharing your thoughts, your views with us and our viewers. And to you viewers, thank you very much for your time as well. See you same time tomorrow night.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा YouTube चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।